I was definitely a little nervous. It was a big stadium and, of course, a big opponent. And yeah, I was really motivated, super excited to play the match. So I think those back and forths were really intense for me, and I'm happy that I was able to get some of them.
You had a tough one against Coco just a couple of weeks ago. What were some of the strategic...
$200 million. That is the estimated corporate valuation, broadcast leverage, and projected brand equity of the American tennis industrial complex that a 20-year-old from the Philippines just systematically dismantled on live television. Look very carefully at the smiling, composed young woman sitting in that studio interview chair. The mainstream media is working overtime to package this into a neat, emotionally satisfying Cinderella story. They want you to believe you are watching a wide-eyed teenager who simply caught lightning in a bottle on the hard courts of Indian Wells. But that is a carefully constructed illusion. You are not watching a fairy tale unfold. You are staring directly into the calculating, unblinking gaze of a corporate predator who just executed the most coldly efficient hostile takeover in the recent history of the WTA Tour. When Alex Eala stepped onto that stadium court and methodically took apart Coco Gauff, she did not simply win a tennis match. She committed an act of absolute financial disruption against the most powerful establishment in the sport. Coco Gauff is not merely a talented athlete. She is a massively subsidized corporate infrastructure. Backed by the most influential agencies, broadcasters, and sponsorship portfolios in the United States, she represents the carefully engineered face of American tennis, the foundation of quarterly revenue projections, and the anchor around which entire tournament marketing campaigns are built. By walking into the California desert and surgically dismantling that infrastructure in front of a home crowd, Eala did not just win points. She detonated a financial grenade at the center of the global tennis economy. And then, without a single moment of hesitation, she walked directly into the media room and delivered a terrifying masterclass in strategic communication, concealing her ruthless tactical dominance behind a perfectly constructed facade of warmth and humility. Today, we are pulling that facade apart completely. We are going to dissect the precise psychological, biomechanical, and economic leverage that Eala deployed not just on the baseline, but in the interview chair itself. Because what you are witnessing is not a breakout moment. It is the foundation of an unstoppable monopoly being laid in real time. To fully appreciate the genius of what just happened, you have to completely abandon the conventional framework of athletic competition. Elite professional tennis at this level is not about heart, passion, or inspiration. It is a brutal game of high-speed algorithmic decision-making and microscopic risk management executed under extreme physical and psychological pressure. Just weeks earlier in Dubai, Gauff had handled Eala decisively. The American deployed her extraordinary physical athleticism and suffocating defensive court coverage to push Eala into an impossible risk-to-reward equation where every aggressive shot became a losing gamble. Most players absorb a defeat like that and carry the psychological wreckage straight into the next event. They arrive at the following tournament already haunted by the memory of their opponent's physical dominance, already psychologically defeated before the first ball is struck. But Eala does not process information the way most competitors do. She did not internalize that Dubai loss as a wound to her confidence. She cataloged it as raw, invaluable operational data. She extracted every meaningful piece of tactical intelligence from that defeat, returned to her preparation environment, and completely reconstructed her baseline risk architecture from the ground up. Listen carefully to the clinical precision with which she describes her adjustment during the post-match interview. There is absolutely zero emotional residue in her language. Every word is stripped down to pure operational efficiency. She states simply that she made fewer errors, that she missed more than she wanted to in Dubai, partly because Gauff played at an exceptional level and forced those mistakes. That is not the language of an athlete processing a victory. That is the language of a chief executive conducting a forensic post-mortem on a failed strategic initiative. Eala had correctly identified that Gauff's primary competitive model depends entirely on manufacturing unforced errors from the opponent. Gauff does not overpower you into submission. She creates an environment of relentless pressure that causes you to attempt shots that exceed your margin, essentially forcing you to financially bankrupt yourself through self-destruction. Eala's counter-strategy was devastatingly simple. She refused to participate in that economic system entirely. In the high-stakes arena of elite professional tennis, an unforced error is not merely a missed shot. It is a direct, irreversible transfer of competitive capital from your account to your opponent's. Eala shut down every channel of capital flight. She recalibrated her shot selection tolerance and transformed the abrasive Indian Wells hardcourt into an extended, grinding war of attrition that placed the full psychological and physical burden squarely on the shoulders of the American. She consciously chose to reduce her own output of aggressive kinetic force in exchange for absolute baseline financial solvency, knowing that Gauff's structurally compromised forehand would eventually fracture under the compounding pressure of sustained, grueling exchanges. Suddenly, Gauff was required to manufacture her own offensive energy, to generate her own power rather than simply redirect it, which represents the single most glaring structural vulnerability in her entire competitive portfolio. Under the unrelenting demand to constantly create offense rather than absorb and redirect it, Gauff's forehand began hemorrhaging points at an accelerating rate. Eala demonstrated conclusively that you do not require a 100-mile-per-hour winner to destroy a world-class opponent. You only need to present them with a mathematical equation that their game is fundamentally incapable of solving. It was a tactical masterpiece of competitive risk management that neutralized hundreds of millions of dollars of American tennis development investment in under 2 hours on a Tuesday afternoon. But the on-court execution is only a fraction of the true power shift occurring right in front of us. What Alex Eala is currently navigating is the rarest and most financially transformative transition in all of professional sports. The evolution from disposable labor into functioning, appreciating capital. When you are grinding through the ITF circuit, which she openly references in this very interview, you are nothing more than indentured competitive labor. You are petitioning tournament directors for wild-card entries, hemorrhaging personal funds on budget flights to forgotten tournaments in secondary markets, entirely at the mercy of an establishment that views you as completely replaceable. Your leverage is essentially zero. But the moment you break through, the moment you accumulate the elite ranking equity that Eala has systematically built over the past 6 months, the entire economic polarity of the sport reverses instantly. You are no longer requesting permission to enter the building. You are the one determining which building receives the considerable financial blessing of your presence. She states it with quiet confidence during the interview, noting that having the ranking where the calendar dictates her schedule represents something extraordinary. That single sentence carries the weight of a declaration of independence. She has seized control of her own means of production. Her ranking is now a hard, appreciating currency that allows her to bypass the soul-destroying qualifying rounds and step directly onto the premium, high-visibility center courts of the sport's most prestigious tournaments. This is the precise environment where geometric scaling of wealth and brand equity accelerates exponentially. Now consider the geopolitical and economic dimension of this victory, because this is where the mathematics become genuinely staggering. The American tennis market is enormous, yes, but it is violently fragmented. Gauff must perpetually compete for domestic attention and sponsorship dollars against Pegula, Navarro, Keys, and a crowded roster of heavily backed American women. The corporate investment is diluted, the media coverage is distributed, and audience loyalty is conditional. Now examine Eala's position. She does not hold a market share. She holds a complete, undiluted monopoly over the entire nation of the Philippines and its massive, hyper-engaged, financially significant global diaspora. She is the singular, unchallenged sovereign of a demographic exceeding 110 million people. In the ruthless calculus of global sports sponsorship, this makes her one of the most undervalued and strategically explosive assets on the planet. When global apparel conglomerates, luxury watchmakers, automotive manufacturers, and telecommunications giants seek penetration into the rapidly expanding Southeast Asian consumer market, they do not have a menu of competing options. Every road leads exclusively and directly to Alex Eala. She is the sole gatekeeper to an entire continent of purchasing power. And she understands this leverage with complete, unsettling clarity. The acoustic force of a mobilized Filipino crowd is not simply enthusiastic support. It is weaponized psychological infrastructure designed to isolate and systematically erode the competitive composure of opponents who have spent their entire careers being sheltered and celebrated by home audiences. When Gauff looked into the stands of her own home tournament and encountered thousands of voices actively willing her defeat, the resulting cognitive dissonance becomes a physical force that tightens the backswing, spikes the heart rate, and forces the brain into panic response. In a sport that demands cold surgical precision under pressure, this crowd dynamic is not incidental. It is a strategic weapon. The era of polite, establishment-approved, country club tennis has officially concluded. The era of ruthless, algorithmically precise, baseline corporate warfare has arrived. And Alex Eala is sitting at the head of that boardroom table, quietly reviewing the data, consolidating her monopoly, and preparing to liquidate the next legacy asset that has the audacity to stand in her way.